Thank you for coming our presentation. My name is Shonosuke Koya from Fukuoka University, that is a Japanese university. Today, I'd like to talk about our study. The title is Exploring Invariant Durational Structure for Voiceless and Voice Stop Quantity Distinction in Kagoshima Japanese. This study is about invariant durational structure for voiceless and voice stop quantity, or singleton and geminate contrast in Kagoshima Japanese. Right, so firstly I'd like to talk about the background and research questions. Here's a background and research question. Then, generally, geminate consonants are phonetically longer than singletons. And in Japanese, closure or consonant duration is a major acoustic correlate for the quantity contrast. However, duration of singleton and geminate sometimes overlap across different speaking rates. For example, geminate consonants in fast speech may have shorter duration than singleton in slow speech. Relational invariance theory assumes that there must be an invariant acoustic parameter for distinguishing the two categories regardless of speaking rate, as we can easily classify a consonant into either singleton or geminate, even when speaking rate changes. Previous studies have proposed and tested several acoustic parameters for accurate distinction between single and geminate consonants. And it's been reported that the best parameter varies by languages. For example, the ratio of closure to vowel duration, or C divided by preceding vowel, most accurately classified singleton and geminate tokens across speaking rate in Italian. But in Tokyo Japanese, the ratio of closure to word duration, or C divided by word, best classified the two categories. Main question of this study is, which of the acoustic parameters is most accurate when distinguishing single and geminate stops in Kagoshima Japanese? We'll examine that by analyzing speech materials produced by speakers of Kagoshima Japanese. Right. Then, before moving on to details of the experiment, we'll briefly introduce characteristics of Kagoshima Japanese. Right, so this is Japan as a country, and Kagoshima is around here, and Kagoshima Japanese is the Japanese dialect which is spoken around here. So Kagoshima Japanese is provincial dialect spoken in the south of Japan, as I said. This dialect determines its tonal patterns entirely on the syllable rather than the molar, which is different from Tokyo Japanese, a molar-based language. Because of this, Kagoshima Japanese is often called a syllabime dialect or syllable-based dialect. Kagoshima Japanese is also different from Tokyo Japanese, a molar-timing language, in terms of control of speech timing. For example, a vowel in closed syllable have longer duration than those in an open syllable in Tokyo Japanese, but there are no such differences in Kagoshima Japanese. Now, from now on, let's move on to the production experiment. So here's a detailed information of our production experiment. Then we have 3 participants, 2 female and 1 male speakers of Kagoshima Japanese, and they are 54, 81 and 87 years old respectively. And there are 2 word lists. The first one is this one, The first one contains 12 disyllabic real words, and 8 out of 12 words are target words. As shown in the upper table is this one. As shown in here, 8 out of 12 words are target words. The second list, this one, the second list has 15 disyllabic nonce words, and as the lower table, that this one is lower table, as this table shows, 6 words are our target. Right. Then the participants uttered each sentence 10 times, and duration of each segment of the target words were measured. Then CW ratio, that means C divided word duration. Then CW ratio and 5 other possible parameters were calculated. And here's an example of the segmentation. We conducted a series of logistic regression analysis with each parameter as an independent variable, and AIC, BIC, and classification accuracy were calculated for each word list. Right. The next is result session. Yeah, here's the result. The upper panel shows the result for voiced stop, or the first word list. So this one is showing the result for voice stops or first word list. And middle one, this one. This one is for voiceless stop or the second word list. And last one, bottom one, this one is for the both voiced and voiceless stops. Then lower values of AIC and BIC suggest better fit of the model, and higher values of classification accuracy means accurate classifications. As you can clearly see, the CW ratio has the lowest values of AIC and BIC and highest values of accuracy. So this one and this one and this line. Yeah, this result is suggesting that CW ratio is the most accurate parameter for single and geminate distinction in Kagoshima Japanese. Then finally, we can conclude our study. So let's move on to the discussion and conclusion part. As we mentioned in introduction, CW ratio has been reported to be the best parameter for distinguishing single and geminate consonants in Tokyo Japanese. The result of this study indicate that CW ratio most accurately distinguish the quantity contrast for both voiced and voiceless stops in Kagoshima Japanese. That is, CW ratio is the best parameter not only for Tokyo Japanese, but also Kagoshima Japanese. And effectiveness of CW ratio as the parameter is not limited to Tokyo Japanese, a Mora timing language. That is the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.